welcome everyone, and appreciate everyone spending the day with us to talk about this very important topic. I'd I'd like to officially welcome our wonderful executives to this exciting panel today. Um, and Before we get started, I'd love to, just do a round of intros from our esteemed guests here, as we also hear from them about what their spheres of influence looks like, we can dive right into a wonderful discussion. With that, I'll start with you, Rama.
Sure. Hi. My name is Rama Mahajanam, and I lead the Applied AI for Customer Experience at Comcast. In the Applied AI organization, we have a new name, AI Technologies, and I work for Dr. Jan Neumann and have been working since 2020. Prior to this, I was working in JP Morgan Chase, where I led their speech recognition and AI ML for contact center optimization efforts. In the last 1 year, my team and we've been working on very exciting projects, especially applying LLMs into the space of customer care, trying to revolutionize our Xfinity Assistant, which is a smart assistant and an AI-powered chatbot. So happy to share any insights we have there. It's been a tough journey, but yeah, I think it's also been a very fun journey.
Thanks for being here, Rama. Anupam.
Hi, I'm Anpuam. I'm VP Engineering at Roblox. I lead the AI platform here. Before that, did a couple of startups and worked at Cloudera during the heydays of Hadoop.
Thanks for being here, Anupam. Surojit.
I am Surojit Chatterjee. I'm founder and CEO of Emma Enterprise Machine Assistant. We just publicly launched our company after a year of being under stealth. And before founding Emma, I was Chief Product Officer at Coinbase. And before that, I was at Google for almost 13 or 14 years, and I led Google's product, mobile ads product and product search.
Awesome. As we get into the discussion, as Osman also reminded us before, do keep your questions coming and upvoting them. We will spend some time at the end taking questions as well. But just to kick it off, in the trailing Ya's session before as well, and the whole topic of the day is productionization of Gen AI. Back in 2023, which is not too long ago, a lot of us were building POCs and internal use cases to kind of try to prove the value of Gen AI in our own specific universes. Whereas 2024, right from the beginning, starting with CES early in the year to Davos, and all of these public forums that are happening, we're hearing across the board that this year the focus is on productionizing Gen AI in various ways, across every organization, as well as monetizing and leveraging the ROI through that. So I'd love to kick off the discussion here and have each one of you kind of shed some light on your perspectives in your universe. Like, how have you seen the journey of Gen AI adoption and where we are today? Starting with you, Rama, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, as you rightly said, Yash, last year was more about POCs, right? So we did lots of POCs. There were, a lot of learnings that we had from POCs, both fine-tuning as well as RAG. And this year it is time to productionize because, we have to realize the value of Gen AI. And businesses, I think, are getting a little bit impatient about that. So we need to kind of deliver on the value, and 2024 is all about delivering value from Gen AI. So that being said, we have actually been very successfully, we have been able to deploy RAG based approaches very successfully in an internal tool that we are calling Ask Me Anything. And that is actually right now we are in the midst of Lab Week in Comcast. And that is the challenge. So it's going across the business, and we are trying to apply RAG wherever any search-based approaches are required. So that expect to see a lot more from that. It was also deployed last year as part of a 90-day challenge in our Agent Assist platform. And we saw some pretty phenomenal results, like pretty good reductions in average handle times and a lot of good feedback from agents. That being said, there are challenges when it comes to fine-tuning these large language models. And we are trying both, right? So we are trying to fine-tune the GPT 3.5, which is the ones that we have access to, and also any open source models as well. So we're trying both approaches to see which ones work better. With the GPT 3.5 fine-tuning, we are observing, high latency of responses, as is everybody else, I'm sure. So latency can be a challenge with those larger models, while they're more versatile, right? They're more versatile, they're more general. But if you look at the fine-tuned models that are the open source fine-tuned models, we do see that they are very quick and obviously cheaper to operate, but they can be very targeted, right? So you do have to make sure that it is custom to your specific fine-tuned task. So that's one of the challenges. The other big challenge that we have observed is really around evaluation. And I believe evaluating the responses that these models generate is still very much of a research area. So, and I'm sure a lot of the other panelists have a lot to say about it, but the typical metrics that we've used to evaluate NLP responses, like the blow score or, Rouge, for instance, they fall flat. They don't work anymore. So it's been mainly, humans evaluating right now, and we are actively exploring how can we automate that. So eager to learn more about that from the other panelists, and yeah, I'll let others opine.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks, Rama. Anupam, over to you.
So in our case, Roblox, for people who are not familiar, is a service where we bring millions of people together in a civil fashion. So if you break it down, there's 50 plus million daily active users who are chatting with each other, and we want to keep it safe because we have a younger demographic. So in 2020, we deployed a large model. It was not called GPT. It was called BERT. Today, BERT is regarded as a small model. But we had the same questions. We have a public blog post that I can link in the Zoom chat, where we had to support 1 billion inference calls a day. Today, we have to support 4 billion inference calls a day. And we were dealing with the same issues, which was CPU or GPU. Should we distill or quantize the model? And as Rama said, how do we know that the precision and recall are good enough rather than involving humans in the loop? What we have seen is the problem/innovation opportunity now gets bigger because the models are bigger. So we are in process of replacing BERT with a large model. Same thing with code assistance, where code auto-completion has been around forever. But when you back it with a large model, the number of calls are too high. And again, the precision recall becomes interesting. So for us, it is about replacing a bunch of infrastructure to support models which have 10 billion parameters or 70 billion parameters.
Awesome. Absolutely. I think once you launch something in production and it scales, then you actually encounter a whole set of different challenges there. And Surojit, over to you next. What's your perspective?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to this forum, and with the other esteemed panelists. I already learned quite a bit. My experience as a founder, salesperson, like, all our sales is founder-led sales. So I talked to a lot of CTOs, CIOs, CISOs, CEOs, and I see these two extremes almost. One, there is too much expectation from GenAI. GenAI because of all the buzz and all the stuff they're reading, to extreme skepticism, oh, all my data will be stolen, or whether it will work or not. I think the trend I'm seeing right now is many companies, and by the way, kudos to Rama, because most companies are not where Comcast probably is. Many companies are struggling to build GenAI applications that even work, because they have seen the demos. The demos are very easy to build. You can build a demo in like 3 hours, and then the actual application takes 3 quarters or more. We have customers who have struggled to build in-house, right? And all the same problems that Anupam and Rama were talking about, right? The problems around scale, right? Oh, it worked great in the demo, but when I put my terabyte data into it, or petabytes of data, it doesn't work anymore. Problem around accuracy, right? Okay, in an enterprise mission critical use case, it cannot be like 20% inaccurate or 10% inaccurate. So how do you manage accuracy? Complexity. Okay, which model do I choose from? There are too many models, different sizes. There's like, how do I evaluate different models? So what is the time of reckoning is coming almost right now. The time to value seems to be much longer than people originally anticipated. So I'll just end with, we are seeing successful companies are starting small. Let's not try to boil the ocean and put GenAI in every single thing. Let's start with a very tangible use case where we can see value, measure value, quantify value, and then grow from there. And that's where we have seen a lot of success within our customer base. And we are seeing in general in the industry, it's like take one step at a time rather than try to do everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think there's at every and here in this in this discussion itself, we saw three different perspectives. One from just about to productionize or already productionized several features and seeing positive responses from that. Or thinking about scale in production for billions of users, and also from the very 0 to 1 level of like how should we be thinking about leveraging Gen AI. And starting at, I mean, I think taking this conversation forward into kind of from the top down approach there, Anupam, I'd love to get your perspective on when we actually start like thinking about the ROI at the board level, and I'm sure there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot going on from Gen AI. How is the board actually perceiving Gen AI, and then how do you actually manage expectations from the technology it seems like it's there, but from what we heard, like it takes multiple quarters to launch something in production, while we want to realize the ROI as quickly as possible. Just would love to get your perspective there.
Yeah, I think both Surojit and Rama mentioned something important. The speed and power of building a demo with a large model is light speed. And so a lot of times your boards, your senior executives will see a demo, they'll get excited and they'll say, wow, we are a month away from production. So some of our job as AI leaders is to put some level of practical guardrails around, how to calculate ROI, or how to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate and put your company at risk. Whether it is Comcast with Rama, imagine a Comcast chatbot giving me 50% discount, which I would love, Rama, but I
Nice
don't
try.
think
I think
your
the
company would love it.
Canada example, right? Anupam?
Exactly, the Air Canada example. So a lot of times for senior AI leaders, it is about setting expectations with the board, which is a cultural thing. But the second one is truly taking an existing workflow that is very expensive and making it 10x or 100x faster. So in our case, because we are so driven by safety and civility, our board presentations are generally about how can we make voice calls more safe. So an example is let's say Rama and I are friends and we are discussing something, we might be very colorful in our words. But let's say we are in a classroom setting with elementary school children, voice safety should be able to catch bad words and bleep them. So giving very practical use cases which are expensive for the company and telling the board how it is going to be 100x cheaper and 100x faster, rather than, as both Surojit and Rama said, getting too much demoware in front of your board, over promising and then really under delivering.
Awesome. To that, I think my next segue would be kind of a discussion on risk itself, like, and how are we actually like across the board thinking of mitigating risk when productionizing. I mean, I think it's a very top of mind topic today, especially with the backlash from from Gemini as well as the Air Canada issue, and I think it's becoming sort of a trend on like there's something specific with GenAI like every week or every other week that we see, and I think in my opinion that's kind of expected with the level of nascency at which we have this technology today. And I mean, I'm sure the world has an appetite for this, but I'm thinking about like when we think about real businesses and real solving real ROI use cases, but investing a lot of time, effort, resources in this, how are we thinking about mitigating risk when it comes to launching things? And Rama, I think you'd be a great person to start with this, given that you've seen your teams productionize a few applications lately.
Yeah, I think the RAG-based approaches, right? That the one RAG use case that is in production and serving agents, mind you, it's not like going out to actual customers yet. We definitely see that it's a little better at handling the risk because you are giving it the content that you want it to answer. Even then, you can have interpretations that the LLM will make on it, right? So the biggest risk as I see it, and especially if you are going ahead with a fine-tuned model, is hallucinations, right? And making stuff up. And we are seeing that when we are doing this testing, as I said right now, to kind of go to production, even for employee trials, we are actually seeing the LLM making up stuff or, assuming stuff. And this is a huge problem, and that's why you need like humans annotating and making sure that you're catching it when the LLM is making these assumptions, right? So explain, and also I think one way of catching it, as Ya was also alluding to earlier in her session, the one that was right before us, is the chain of thought approach, right? It makes the response slower, but it kind of tells you the LLM's thought process in arriving at an answer. That makes the whole explainability of the answer a little easier. But that being said, you still have this hallucination thing, and we've done several approaches like implementing guardrails, the typical moderation that OpenAI has implemented in place already, is already there. On top of it, we've implemented like certain topics are taboo, those kind of things. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge to understand what are these black boxes kind of giving us, right? The other key thing that we are seeing is how does the LLM handle out of domain queries, right? Because we are using, even when you're using an open source model, you really don't know all of the data that it was pre-trained on. So like all of the ML engineers on this call, we all know what data went into our models when we were training them, right? In the classical ML approach. But now you really don't know what went into the pre-training of it. And so that makes the model very unpredictable. It's like the wild, wild west. It can come back with, whatever answer. And so that is a big challenge in production. And so our legal team definitely had a lot of, caution to throw our way. And so, the only way that they will even let us go into production is by putting in, like legalese and docs, like in every response, or at least on the chatbot, saying that this has been generated by using, generative AI. This response has been generated using that. Without that, you really can't go into production because of the unpredictability of the responses. Right. So those are the key things that I see as two big risks with using LLMs in production.
Super useful. Yeah, some of these like practical, use cases and applications are something that all of us need to keep in mind as well as we start productionizing, and these learnings are super useful. Anupam, any thoughts to add here?
For us, because we serve millions of creators, we have found something similar to what Rama said. Use cases where there is a human in the loop are okay because they might be a little more forgiving. Let's say we give you a bad code completion. That doesn't affect an end user having a bad experience. But let's say you have a situation where you take the code, nobody else checks it, put it in production.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of LinkedIn blog posts right now which says developers will be replaced. In that world, nobody checks the code. And we all know how difficult it is to put code in production. In any case, even when humans write it and you put all kinds of try catch and you still crash your service. So wherever humans are in the loop, we can be more aggressive. The other one that Rama mentioned, which is explainability, is going to be very important. Because as we have started using more and more large model in production, we keep getting questions. Just why am I seeing this homepage? Because it uses a large model. Now we have to explain how the neural network came up with this recommendation for Surojit. And that takes a lot of effort because debugging a neural network is very hard. So I think that's what, not to pitch Galileo, but I think it's going to be a really important piece of putting things into production.
Thanks, Anupam, and thanks for the unwanted plug as well. But I mean, absolutely. I think I'm sure we all here in the audience as well resonate from a lot of these. Last question before we take a few of your questions, Surojit. Back over to you. How are you as also a startup founder in this space, and there's so much cutting edge innovations happening in this space. How are you seeing this landscape shift quickly, and then how do you and your team stay on top of all of the new technology developments in this space to build cutting edge applications?
Yeah, great question. The things, the industry and the technology is moving really fast, and we have not seen anything like this probably for many decades now. It's like early internet or something like that. So it's exciting to be here at this moment and building at this moment. On our side, like what we do in the company, we regularly read everything that's posted out there, particularly the research papers. To be like a cautionary tale, though, we find 60-70% of the papers are not replicable. We have few folks try to replicate quickly. So, I mean, they may be replicable on a toy data set that the researcher used, but not generally replicable. The other thing I find actually is sometimes the research is a little bit disconnected from reality. So we work very closely with customers. A lot of our customers are large customers, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 customers, enterprises. And we learn a lot from working very closely with customers and solving their problems and marrying that with some whatever is happening in research. Sometimes we'll find something we have already invented. The research paper comes out like a month later. So that also happens as well. I think ultimately it's about solving the customer problem that matters, right? Yeah. And how, customer doesn't really know or want to know all the techniques you have used underlying, as long as it's scaling, it's accurate, right? It's easy to use. They are happy. And that's where our focus is.
That's awesome. That brings us towards an end of an amazing discussion. There are over 50 questions in the group chat. I'd like to at least answer like the one or two of the most popular ones. Oz, if you want to open it up.
Yeah, definitely. So I've picked three. The first one is for you, Rama. What is the best way to structure AI specialists within an organization from both an infrastructure and product development perspective, especially if you have multiple lines of business? I know this is something you've thought through at Comcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so yeah, we are in Comcast, although, like it's still work in progress, we did have a reorg last year, which basically tried to address this. And so we have the AI technology group, which is my group, and it's basically comprised of AI experts, but you don't need only the AI experts in order to be successful, right? So basically what we do is, if for a particular use case, you definitely need like a cross-functional team. So we work very closely with AI experiences team, which basically drives, what is the kind of experience that you want to give to the customer? So you can kind of think about them as grounding us, the technologists, in what the experience we need to achieve is and what the metrics are. So to track the metrics, we actually have a product team. So we have 3 teams working very closely together. And we actually have a cross-functional team. And since, we are also using Agile, we have a cross-functional team for every use case. So for every use case, you will have not just a modeler and a fine-tuner, but you'll also have the annotators. You'll also have the engineering lead who is going to deploy the model, all of them working in tandem. So I think that's absolutely crucial. It was before as well with ML. Although, we kind of got away with like building models and then throwing it over the fence to software engineers to deploy. That paradigm will not work in this current scenario. So that's why we are kind of going at it in a use case by use case approach, and having the cross-functional team live and breathe that use case, and then, like develop the model and productionize it and do everything together.
Really good. Yeah, as we say, right? Like it sometimes takes a village and even maybe a city to launch something in production.
Exactly. Those were the exact learnings that we just shared those are the exact words we shared with our leadership team. It takes a village. So yeah.
Nice. Next question, and thank you for that, Rama. Next question is for you, Anupam, on the subject of data and security. How do enterprise leaders see the data and security risk when it comes to using their private data with LLM APIs? Any implications on InfoSec or hosting considerations to circumvent these risks?
Excellent question. Something that is really pertinent because it blocks many use cases from going in production. So the first part of it is we don't send data out to public APIs. So therefore, we cannot use GPT in production because both our legal team as well as our InfoSec team is not clear and sure about endpoints that are public. The second one is multimodal data. So when we are feeding images and videos and voice, we are very conservative about feeding multimodal data. We all know how to secure rows and columns, but when you take an image and send it to a large model, how do you avoid regurgitation if Osman's entire photograph is regenerated in a completely different creation? So those are 2 areas that we are very careful. The reason I said it's a great question is it's not answered completely yet.
Very helpful, and hopefully any regenerated images stay private.
Exactly.
Last question is for you, Surojit. In terms of ROI, I think you spoke about this during the prep call, but in production and planning phase, how do you actually determine ROI, measure ROI, and then prioritize use cases and resource allocation accordingly? I know you're probably seeing this both as on the sales side at Emma, but also in your time at Coinbase.
Yeah. Let me talk a little bit on both sides. So on sales side of Emma, how our customers measure ROI. Sometimes actually, frankly, we have to guide the customer because it's not obvious to the customer how to I figure out ROI for GenAI. And the way we have seen success or most successful customers, they're looking at, okay, what is this time spent on a particular task and how much time is saved? What's the value of that time? And some of our customers actually have done that calculation and they can say, okay, I can reduce time spent by this particular role. And Emma is an universal employee, can play any role in the organization. So usually this kind of task take like 2 hours. Emma can reduce it to like 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, that's the time saved. Okay, what's the compounded time save over the year, over hundreds of people or thousands of people, and so on. So that's a little bit of an exercise companies have to do, right? Task by task almost. Internally, like or on Coinbase side, right? When I was like buyer of products, it is quite similar. We would look at a number of people involved and what's the money saved, how can we actually get people to do more useful and more interesting or more strategic work rather than do mundane and routine tasks, repetitive tasks. So it's kind of it's a very similar calculation as well. But I think the point is you have to go to the next level of detail, double click, and actually build a model before you get into either building or buying something, because GenAI is expensive. Even if you're building something, you'll soon realize that it's not like you can throw in 2 engineers and you can build something useful. Maybe you have to throw in really good engineers. Not everybody has the skill and they're expensive. And once you do the whole thing around evaluation, model training, you will see it's not that cheap. So you better have good ROI on the other end of it when you are putting that effort. So.
That's awesome. With that, I'll just say some parting words here. Thank you so much for spending this wonderful time with us, Rama, Anupam, and Surojit. The perspectives, the learnings that we shared today, I'm sure everyone in the audience here, and including me, we're going to value this and apply the learnings today in productionizing our GenAI applications. There are tons of other questions. We'll definitely answer all of them offline and send them out as well. With that, thank you all again, and I'll hand it over to Oz to walk us through the next steps in the program today. So,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.